Let's talk about side quests. And I'm not just talking about the fun, adventurous kind. I'm also talking about those tiny little digital tasks. The unread text, that unopened email, that can somehow feel heavier than our biggest real world responsibilities. We're going to explore why that is and the pretty surprising science behind it all. Okay, let's get into it.
I mean, it's a pretty common feeling these days, right? This idea that our lives are a game, where we're leveling up, tackling our main quests like careers or family, and then there are the side quests. But this whole concept is kind of blown up online in two really different ways.
So, on one hand, you've got the really fun side of it. People are embracing what's being called a side quest summer. And it's this movement that's all about just breaking the routine, saying yes to spontaneous things, and finding joy in those small, unplanned adventures. Maybe it's hitting up a local festival, trying a new recipe, or just exploring your own city with fresh eyes. So, in this world, a side quest is something you choose for your own happiness. It's an escape, a little moment of pleasure that just adds some color to our lives. But that's not the whole picture, because there is another kind of side quest that's been popping up in our digital lives, the kind we don't choose, and the kind that definitely doesn't feel like an adventure. Yeah, this is where the whole story shifts a little bit. Because sometimes a tiny little task, like just replying to a simple message, can feel less like a fun adventure and more like some impossible challenge that just shows up when you can least handle it. Wow. This quote it hits home for so many of us, doesn't it? If you have ever read a message, replied perfectly in your head, and then just nothing, please know you are so not alone. It's not about being rude or being a bad friend, and actually, there's a name for this very specific, very real feeling. It's called reply paralysis, and it's that feeling of being totally and completely frozen. Your brain knows what to do, you might have even composed the perfect witty reply in your head, but the act of actually typing it and hitting send just feels impossible. The most important thing to get here is that this comes from our psychology, not our character. It's a bug in the system, not a flaw in the person. And this feeling has a ripple effect. For the person on the other side, waiting for that reply, the digital silence can be incredibly stressful. It creates this ambiguity that leads to what researchers call cyber ostracism, that awful feeling of being ignored or left out online, which can kick off anxiety and self-doubt. It's really a cycle of stress on both sides of the screen. So, what is really going on here? Why does something as simple as a text message carry so much emotional weight? Well, the answer, it turns out, is in the science of how we actually communicate. Just think about a conversation you have with someone in person. The words you're saying are only one piece of the puzzle. You're also processing their tone of voice, their facial expressions, their body language, the timing. All of these are critical little bits of data that help us really understand meaning and intent. So check this out. This chart perfectly illustrates what scientists call the cues filtered out theory. As you can see over on the left, face-to-face communication is rich with all that data. But texting, on the right, is what they call lean. It's been stripped of all those nonverbal cues we subconsciously rely on. There's no tone, no reassuring smile, no immediate feedback. And that lack of information creates ambiguity, a vacuum that our brains just rush to fill. And this is where our brains really kick into high gear. Especially for those of us who are prone to anxiety, the brain tries to fill that vacuum. But it often doesn't fill it with positive, happy thoughts. Instead, it defaults to a fear of negative evaluation. Did I say the wrong thing? Are they mad at me? Did they hate my joke? That simple text isn't just a text anymore. It's a blank canvas for all of our biggest social fears. And this effect isn't just about texting. The constant, never-ending stream of information from our digital lives has a real, measurable cost on our energy. It's a phenomenon called mental fatigue. 30 minutes. What's so special about that number? Well, a recent study found that just 30 minutes of scrolling on social media can bring on a pretty significant level of mental fatigue. I'm not talking hours, just half an hour of casual scrolling is enough to drain your brain's battery. And this chart shows you exactly what they found. Researchers had one group of athletes use social media for 30 minutes, while the other group, the control, just watched a neutral documentary. I mean, look at the difference in reported mental fatigue. The results were absolutely stark. The brains of the people in the social media group were just genuinely more tired. So how does this actually happen? Well, it's basically a four-step cycle. First, social media hits you with a high cognitive load. Your brain is processing a fire hose of information. Second, you're making constant tiny decisions, like comment, share, keep scrolling. Each one is a micro decision. All of this leads to increased perceived effort, which makes every single task that comes after it feel harder. And the end result? Mental fatigue. That's exactly why, after scrolling for a bit, a simple task like replying to a text can feel absolutely monumental. Your brain's resources are already used up. Okay, so hearing all of this might feel a little heavy, I get it, but honestly, just understanding the why behind it all is the most empowering first step we can take. It allows us to stop blaming ourselves and start being more compassionate about how we get through this very digital world. And that question really gets to the heart of it all. We can't change the technology overnight, right? But what we can change is the message we send to ourselves. We can shift that internal voice from one of self-criticism to one of self-compassion. So here are the key takeaways for your own quest. First, please validate your feelings. That anxiety is a real, logical response to a flawed system. Second, practice self-compassion. Give yourself the same grace you'd give a friend. Third, reframe the quest. Acknowledge that these tiny digital tasks take real energy. And finally, be mindful of fatigue. Notice when you're drained and give yourself permission to step back. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Knowing everything we now know about the lean medium, mental fatigue, and anxiety, what's one small digital side quest you can compassionately give yourself permission to postpone today? Because, sometimes the most powerful quest isn't about doing more. It's about reclaiming your own time and your own energy.